If you are thinking about policy making, you might think about analogies. You might think about making sausage. You might think about peeling an onion. The more layers you peel, the more you want to cry. I think it more in terms of going for a road trip. First of all, you have to determine where you want to go, yes. Then you have to determine how to get there, yeah? Two questions, where to go, how to get there. So where do we want to go in pharmaceutical policymaking in respect of innovative drugs? What are the social objectives? What are the destinations that we want to get to? Well, obviously we want to reward the development of therapeutically useful new drugs, right? Why is this the case? The reason is that new drugs can be extremely beneficial to society. These offer incredible value. I don't have the publications in front of me, but I was familiar with a paper that came out a number of years back by Philipson and his colleague Jenna, which estimated the value to society, the states, from the introduction of drugs for HIV/AIDS. And the extension of longevity and quality of life by individuals whose prospect was pretty dim without the medications, that was valued in the order of trillions of dollars. I mean, this is a very serious, non-trivial technology we're talking about. So you want to definitely reward this handsomely, I'd say. Our second point I want to say about this objective, the first objective, is that we're a pretty well-off country. Canada, we're what, number 7 in the top, or the G7 countries, right? We got a few bucks to play around with. We should pay our fair share. We want to be a member in good standing in the international community. We don't want to shirk our responsibility. All right. Second objective, second destination. Ensure that some of this R&D takes place within our borders. Now, I'm not really big on this objective myself. Personally, I don't care if a drug is discovered in Canada or Kathmandu or Cambodia, as long as the thing works. That's all I care about. But some policymakers want the activity to take place within our borders for some reason. Maybe because it is sexy. I'm not sure. But if that's the case, you know, aerospace is sexy. Computers are sexy. So I'm not too sure what this fixation is with having the R&D being conducted within our borders. But anyways, we'll just take that as a second objective. I'm just willing to go with it. Take that as a given. That is something in the social utility function which you can't argue with if you're an economist. Okay, we talked about where we want to go. The second question is, which route do we want to take to get to this destination? What are the policy options? In other words, well, there are basically 3. There's actually 4, but the fourth is kind of too far out there. Let's talk about the 3 standard ones. So the first option is to pay high prices for new drugs, to give innovators a reward in the form of market exclusivity that's time limited through the patent system. Second option is to support pharmaceutical R&D directly. We can actually reduce the cost to drug companies of engaging in R&D activity. Third, we could consider some combination of the previous 2, right? So you can think of the conceptual at least about having maybe a shorter period of exclusivity with more ramped up subsidy for the cost of R&D, yeah? Or have long period of exclusivity and short, very small supports for the cost of R&D, yeah? So if we want to pay high prices for new drugs, what we can do is following. We could, Mark might like this, relax constraints imposed by drug payers. They can be very, very picky consumers now. They can sit on the dossier for months. They can eat into your patent life, right? They can make it difficult to recoup your investment. The second way is to implement, a little bit charged topic here, but I'll say it anyways. Implement the EU proposals for stronger pharma IP. We could increase periods of data exclusivity. We could have patent term restoration. We'd do some other things. And if we wanted to support pharmaceutical R&D directly, well, we have a whole bunch of options here. I'll just mention two. Very exciting initiatives happening in various universities, including my own home institution, the University of Toronto. Public-private partnerships that are engaging in translational science to overcome the so-called valley of death, which separates basic research findings from clinically useful drugs that you can get off your medicine cabinet, out of your medicine cabinet. There's this big chasm there, and to be quite frank, industry sucks at crossing it. They need help. There's been some very useful, very promising initiatives in that regard. Or, as another option, I mean, this is a whole menu here. We can sit and choose a menu items, and we can discuss them. We could have public subsidy of phase 3 clinical trials. As you know, this is the single most costly component of drug R&D. Yeah? Huge outlays on recruiting thousands of patients from different sites. Paying off the hospitals, the doctors is very expensive. They're very expensive people to have in your study to recruit patients. So we can think about, can we lower the cost to drug companies by subsidizing the phase 3 clinical trials? Farzad, are you nodding in agreement or disagreement? Okay. You're digesting us. All right. All right. Okay, so we discussed the destination. We discussed the possible routes. So we've narrowed down, we want to go to Cancun, but we have different travel providers. We can go on Sunwing, or we can go on Air Canada Vacations, or we can go on WestJet. Okay. What one do we choose? Well, in other words, how effective are these options? Well, for your convenience, I've summarized what I know about the effectiveness of these options in a table format, where the rows of the table are the policy options, and those include, as I said earlier, high prices for new drugs and direct supports for R&D. And the columns, they tell you the effectiveness are the different social objectives. Yeah. And the cells, the cells, sorry, I haven't got a pointer on there. The cells tell you what I think is true about the evidence in terms of using this policy lever to affect the social outcome of interest. So let's first of all dissect the information on the impact of paying high prices for new drugs on the increase in the number of useful new drugs that come to market. Well, what do we know? Mark can correct me if I'm wrong, but we know that globally, the branded drug industry, the innovative industry, spends about 15% of their revenues on drug R&D. Is that about right? Everyone, yes, about right. Maybe a bit more, maybe 18%. Let's say 18%. The problem is, though, that the industry is experiencing, unfortunately, very low productivity in converting those dollars into new drugs. What's Mark's reaction to that? It's unfortunate. Now, the recent estimates are that it costs, and this is from a Lilly study, including the dry wells, the drugs that didn't pan out, and the cost of capital, it cost over $1.5 billion US dollars to get a drug to market. 1.5 billion. Can you imagine how big a number that is? That's a massive amount of money to put at risk in drug development. So it's huge. It's a very expensive proposition. Now, how about the second cell, which is the effect of paying high prices for new drugs on R&D which takes place within our borders? We know that based on the data from the PMPRB, that roughly 8% of Canadian sales, branded drug sales revenue go to R&D. And that takes the form mostly of phase 3 clinical trials. Yeah? And there's also a non-insignificant amount of basic research which takes place mostly at academic institutions. And I don't want to discount that, but the bolus of this funds goes to the clinical trials, which is obviously a valid expenditure. We have to test these drugs out somewhere. Now, what do we know about the effectiveness of the different set of options, the direct supports for pharmaceutical R&D? Well, here the jury is unfortunately out. We simply don't know how effective these other options would be in achieving our social objectives. They show promise. I think these PPPs are very exciting. Hopefully we'll find out we can get some money behind them to see if they work, and improve the rate of discovery of useful new drugs. But at the moment, we simply don't know because they really haven't been tried. And it's also unclear how much these things would actually work to increase R&D which takes place within our borders. Which leads us to our conclusion. What we did in the CHSRF report in respect of the innovative drug reimbursement is that we concluded that we need to really assess the bottom line take-home message. So we need to assess, have a sit down, and figure out what we're spending currently on all forms of support for pharmaceutical innovation. We should figure out what we should spend as a rich country, an amount commensurate with our financial ability to pay, and then have a adult conversation about the mix of supports, be they high prices for new drugs, varying periods of market exclusivity, and direct supports for R&D, which will have the effect of achieving our social objectives. Thank you.